A 7-man administrative panel of inquiry set up by the Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano to look into last year's disturbances in Obosi community has been submitted. And Obosi in the Idemili North local government area of Anambra State, southeast Nigeria, was a site of disturbances owing to land disputes and succession to the traditional throne.
Last year, the traditional ruler of Obosi was accused by the president of the community of illegal assumption to the throne, misappropriation of the community funds, and tyrannical rule.
The traditional ruler we have is like trying to bring anarchy in the town. And I'm trying to resist it because if you allow such a thing to happen, his reign will be like Idi Amin reign.
But his defense maintained his innocence.
Any allegation against Igwe is frivolous, made up for the purposes of giving a dog a bad name.
The panel grills the leader as well as other indigenes of the town.
You can't buy anything, road vehicles, forcing them to enter. But if they don't enter, they will lose their shades. When I came into the office as the Obosi, the bank consulted me and said, now that your predecessor is late and the other signatory to the account, they have been proscribed. So the bank came to me to change signatories. I had no knowledge of that account, and we changed, and the money was also disbursed for the running of the town.
After 25 grueling sittings at which 17 witnesses testified, the panel is ready with its findings.
Came up with 3 goals of our work. Tender wise voluntary contains the reports and recommendation of the panel.
Governor Obiano receives the results of the panel's work. The governor hopes that the recommendations will permanently address the conflict in Obosi.
I believe by the time we issue these documents, by God's grace, we'll be able to resolve on a permanent basis the crisis in the Obosi community.
Governor Willie Obiano dispatches the panel immediately to investigate the crisis between Ukpo, Abagana, and Enugu communities.
Yes, indeed, and we're starting off with football. The two Madrid giants, Real and Atletico, have lost their appeals against transfer bans which were imposed on them for breaching rules on signing non-Spanish under-18 players. The decision by FIFA's appeal committee means that neither club can register players during the next 2 transfer windows. The bans were initially imposed by FIFA's disciplinary committee in January, but were temporarily lifted pending appeals later the same month, allowing them to sign players in the transfer window which ended just last month. Atletico were fined £622,000, while Real were told to pay £249,000. FIBA says September the 25th rather, is the deadline for registration for clubs featuring in the Zone 3 Championship in Lomé, Togo. That's the FIBA Africa Championship. Now, the tournament holds from October the 21st to the 30th, with teams expected from Nigeria, Republic of Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Niger Republic, Togo, and Liberia. The championship will also serve as qualifiers for the FIBA Africa Champions Cup for men and women, which will take place in December in Mozambique. FIBA Africa Secretary General Billy Alphonse warned that any team that fails to meet the deadline will pay a fine of $1,000. In the women's draw, Simona Halep did something no one else was able to do against Serena Williams at the US Open, but still couldn't stop the world number 1 from advancing to the semi-final stage. The 5th seed Romanian managed to take the first break points from Williams, and the only set surrendered by the top seed, but at the end of the day the result was the same. The 34-year-old American walking away with a 6-2, 4-6, 6-3 win. The victory also kept Williams on course for a record 7th US Open crown, which will be her 23rd Grand Slam title, moving her past Steffi Graf for the most in the Open era. Kell Brook has revealed he fears Saturday's meeting with Gennady Golovkin, but is sure the feeling will help him produce his very best. The special one, as is known, is attempting to dethrone WBA, Super, WBC and IBF World Middleweight Champion Golovkin, having leaped from welterweight. All eyes will be on Friday's weigh-in when Brook will step on the scales around the 160-pound limit for the first time in his professional career. Meanwhile, Golovkin says he wants to produce a dramatic show for the fans when he faces Kell Brook at the O2 Arena on Saturday. Golovkin was in a confident mood as he addressed the international media and outlined his plans to deliver a showpiece event for his supporters. The 34-year-old will defend his middleweight world titles for the first time in the UK against Brook, who, although also undefeated, is climbing 2 weight classes to take on the destructive Kazakh. That's a wrap in sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun Ijoma. Will be back with the rest of the news.
The ruling ZANU-PF-led government in Zimbabwe has been accused of withholding food aid from those who've been criticizing the government. The chairman of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission released a report showing the ruling party members were the major perpetrators in violations linked to distribution of food, which has affected huge numbers of people. The government is yet to comment on the accusations, but President Robert Mugabe has been clamping down on protests going on in the country in recent weeks, promising Zimbabwe will not become like the Arab Spring. And it's the last day for Gabon's opposition to seek the recount of votes in the country's recent presidential election. Protests erupted across the country in recent weeks over results, declaring incumbent President Ali Bongo winner. They've suggested the results were tampered with. President Bongo has reacted to accusations and has said that he's rejecting them, saying the results were altered to ensure his victory, but there's been increasing international pressure on him to call for a recount. The UN has urged the opposition to lodge an appeal with the Constitutional Court, but the main opposition challenger, career diplomat Jean Ping, has repeatedly questioned the neutrality of the court. And US President Barack Obama has described Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump as, quote, wacky and uninformed, following a comment he made about Russian President Vladimir Putin being a better leader. Mr. Obama reiterated an opinion he had voiced before, that Mr. Trump is not qualified to be President of the United States. During a televised forum on Wednesday, Mr. Trump praised President Putin's great control and 82% approval rating.
And are maintaining a...
And the main news again. INEC today made a U-turn and postponed the Edo governorship poll. The electoral umpire has fixed September the 28th as the new date for the election. President Muhammadu Buhari today launched the new national orientation program, Change Begins With Me, and described it as the best way to fight corruption. Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has criticized security operatives' attempts to stop protests of the group campaigning for the rescue of the missing Chibok girls. And Zimbabwe's Human Rights Commission has accused President Robert Mugabe's party of withholding food aid from opposition supporters in drought-ravaged areas. Well, that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Hunyato. Do have a good night.